Good morning, friends and enemies. This is the Week 16 wide receiver ranking video. All right, we are going game by game and bucketing every single fantasy relevant wide receiver into must start, strong start, dub flex, L flex, or the cone category. You did not want to put cones in your lineup. You don't want to put anyone on the bottom half of this chart in your lineup, but we must progress on. We have a lot of wonky scheduling going forward for the NFL with Saturday games, multiple Saturday games this week. We have Christmas Day games the week after that. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of injuries. I'm doing the wide receiver video first because I think it's going to take a little more energy out of me. And I want to make sure that I have it all, that I can bring it all to y'all. We're going to start with Thursday Night Football. All right, we got Denver in LA, 42-point total here. The Chargers are 2.5-point favorites. These are two very, very good defenses. We have teams that are relatively banged up here. The Chargers can't get anything going on offense because their run game is terrible, and a lot of their offense goes through the run game. Without J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards is the fullest of cones I've ever seen, but this is a wide receiver video for y'all, all right? On the flip side, we do have Surtain and Riley Moss. Both are looking like they're going to be going limited practices and full practices for this game. So no injury designations for the Denver Bronco cornerbacks. Now, Ladd McConkey, as long as he is playing, he is obviously in your lineup as a strong start. He is Mr. Herbert's favorite weapon here. Outside of that, you have Quentin Johnson, who I'd throw into the L-Flex category. It's just very hard to predict when he's going to have his good games, and this is obviously not a good matchup. Now, on the flip side, Denver, Courtland Sutton, of course, continues to remain a strong start here. The Chargers' Cam Hart, one of their better cornerbacks, will be in the concussion protocol, so that is a little bit of a ding to them. They also are going to be without Will Disley again, of course. And then Zion Johnson, one of their first-round interior defensive linemen, is back-to-back DMPs. So that's a little bit of a problem for the interior there. They obviously have the two stalwarts at tackle, but their interior has been a problem for them all season, which has led to them not being able to run the ball. So, you know, we like Ladd McConkey in this game. We like Courtland Sutton in this game, of course. But overall, this is not a game that I expect a lot of fireworks, a lot of firepower. All the ancillary pieces, Vele, all of them are going to go into the cone category. Again, Johnson, L-Flex, would very much prefer not to start him, but if you need to, I guess you could do worse because he's got some upside and he scores a lot of touchdowns, and Herbert seems to continue to pepper him regardless of the outcome. He just sees receiver, throws it to him, does not look at the results, does not see Quentin Johnson continuously make bad plays and drop balls, and he says, I don't care, forget about it, Men in Black type beat, move on to the next one. All right, let's move to Saturday's game. KC Houston. This one very, very much up in the air still because of Patrick Mahomes' ankle. I'm filming this at around 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning. We have some practice reports because they are playing on Saturday, so we did get a Tuesday practice report. Also, Vegas originally opened up this game with Houston as 3-point favorites in Kansas City, which tells you that they were expecting Patrick Mahomes to sit. KC, they are now 3-point favorites, which is pointing towards Patrick Mahomes playing. The total in this game also jumped up about 2 points. Here's the way I'm looking at this. They got the practice in yesterday. Mahomes was actually a full participant at practice. Now, it was more of a walkthrough. Andy Reid said they didn't do anything at practice, so that doesn't actually, in my opinion, gear towards whether or not Mahomes would play. But obviously, Vegas is taking that into effect. The way I'm looking at this is like, yeah, we could sit him because they play on Wednesday next week, and, that's a quick turnaround, playing 3 games in 11 days. The other way to look at this is if KC wins 2 out of the next 3 games, they lock up the number 1 seed. If they feel like they could do that over the next 2 weeks, what that would do is would make week 18 meaningless for them. If they could win the next 2 weeks, week 18 would be meaningless for them, and then they have a bye, meaning they could give Mahomes basically 3 weeks of rest before their first playoff game. That's one path here where I think Mahomes could try to struggle through this and win this game for them, win the next 2 games for them. Obviously, they might sit him this week, try to play him Wednesday against Pittsburgh on Christmas, and go that route. Still up in the air. Vegas is pointing towards him playing this upcoming week, which obviously bodes well for all the pass catchers. If Carson Wentz is playing, we don't really want any part of the pass catchers. Marquise Hollywood-Brown was a full participant at practice on Tuesday. So this does gear up for him to make his return. What I think that does, that does not make me want to throw him into the lineup whatsoever. I'm going to need to see him play before I throw him into my lineup next week if he does play. And then this Pittsburgh week 7, like messy situation overall. So Hollywood would go right into the cone category for me. Xavier Worthy, who's been kind of hot, very involved, would probably go into the L flex category for me. I don't love the matchup per se versus Houston. They are a good defense overall. They've allowed some fantasy points, but they're relatively a good defense. As you can see, EPA per pass rank, #2 in the entire NFL. They get a pass rush. Mahomes won't be very mobile if he does play on that ankle. The Chiefs left tackle has been a huge problem, so they can get some real pressure against Mahomes, which is maybe another thing to think about if you're the Chiefs. Obviously, this is a team that can get pressure against some of your weak points here. So when I look at Worthy, normally he has been a good player. Like the energy behind the way that his season has gone would make me feel like he's a dub flex, but I'm going to throw him into the L flex category based on matchup, based on the uncertainty of Mahomes. If he does play, L flex for me. DeAndre Hopkins, again, this is one of those categories where because Hollywood comes back, like it just kind of messes up the entire target tree situation. And between Hollywood, Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Watson, Juju scoring touchdowns, Kelsey, Noah Gray, there are legitimate 6 to 7 players that could catch receiving touchdowns in this game, which doesn't make me feel great about any of them. If I had to rank them, I think legit, if Hollywood plays, I'm still ranking every single one of them as an L flex or worse. And just again, to categorize what that means is anyone in the dub flex or L flex category are flex worthy players. Dub flex means I feel good about them. L flex means I don't feel good about them. So they would all go into the L flex category for me. I would rank them D-Hop, Xavier, Hollywood Brown in that order. However, on the flip side, obviously Nico Collins is a must start. Tank Dell has moved into legit just the cone category for me. Next Saturday game is Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I am weirdly excited for this game. I'm also weirdly excited for the fact that Underdog is giving you a free square of Lamar Jackson 1 passing yard in this game. Literally all he has to do is throw for 1 passing yard. They also have free squares for Thursday Night Football game, Herbert 1 passing yard, Lamar Jackson 1 passing yard on Saturday, and then they have a Sunday 1 p.m. slate, a Sunday Night Football free square. So if you're not on Underdog yet, they're literally giving you free money for the holiday season, okay? Go to Underdog Fantasy or download the app. It is the first link down below. Use code BDGE when you deposit just $10 or more, and they're going to hit you with a deposit bonus as well as the free square for Justin Herbert and or Lamar Jackson, depending on whenever you sign up, all right? Underdog Fantasy, code BDGE. Baltimore 6-point favorites, Pittsburgh on the road in Baltimore, 44.5 point total. This is likely the most injury-dependent line/game. Because we have 2 players in Pittsburgh that pretty much define both the offense and the defense for this team. We have George Pickens dealing with the hamstring injury that's already kept him out, and we have TJ Watt who rolled his ankle. And both of them, we do have Tuesday practice reports again because they're playing on Saturday. Both of them were DNPs on Tuesday. We'll have to see if TJ, I would say if I had to lean one way or another, I think TJ Watt is likely more promising to get onto the field. This feels like there's a lot of energy behind this game. Like this is a huge matchup for this rivalry. We're deep into the season. Both of them have very good records. Both of them are good teams. I feel like just the energy of what I've seen on social and the way I'm just feeling about this game is that both of these dudes are going to push very, very hard to play. Like this is the game that you try to play through injuries for. We'll have to see where that settles in. But 6 points is a big number for Baltimore. I think Baltimore is the better team. If those 2 guys are out, the Pittsburgh offense becomes anemic. If George Pickens is out, he becomes, everyone in that passing offense becomes a cone. If George Pickens does play, I'm still nervous about the hamstring. I don't think it's enough time for him to have healed from it. He has not gotten a limited or a full practice this week, so we will need to see that in order for him to get back onto the field. I think they're really going to try to get both guys onto the field, though. Pickens would be, you're not sitting him. But I will say the Baltimore secondary and the Baltimore passing defense has made adjustments over the last few weeks, and they've become a very, very good pass defense. That is not the same pass defense that we knew in the beginning of the year, okay? So it's a much tougher matchup. George Pickens would be a strong start for me. On the flip side, Baltimore, Lamar, I think Lamar's going to pop this game. I know that is not the historical numbers that we have seen and what we come to expect with Lamar versus Pittsburgh, This is a very tough matchup. If TJ Watt is out, it's obviously a much, much better matchup. We've seen numbers where when TJ Watt misses games, Pittsburgh defense is a whole another 2 or 3 tiers down from the way they typically perform. So less pressure. I think Lamar's going to run a lot, but I think he's going to be able to throw the ball a lot as well because the Pittsburgh run defense is pretty good. And we saw what happened last week. Derrick Henry couldn't really get anything going against the New York Giants. So with Lamar, you got Zay Flowers, who has been very boomer bust. He's getting some targets, but he's not really making deep plays. Guys like Rashad Bateman are making those plays. I'm going to put Zay Flowers into the dub flex category. You know, he's viable to pop any given week, but for right now, he's more of just a floor play. I would throw Rashad Bateman into the L flex category despite coming off the big game. All right. And again, make sure you hit Underdog Fantasy, promo code BDGE. Let's move to the Cleveland and Cincinnati game. Cincy 7.5-point favorites at home, 47-point total. A lot of green across the board here. You see the stats are good for everybody, except for the fact that Dorian Thompson-Robinson will be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, which is a massive blow to all parties involved on the Cleveland Browns. All right. Jerry Jeudy has been lights out. I am way more siding with the fact that I think DTR is more bad than Jerry Jeudy is good. So if I'm looking at my lineup and I know DTR is the starting quarterback and I'm thinking about playing Jerry Jeudy, you could play him. But me personally, he's moving into the L flex category for me. Despite the matchup versus Cincinnati, despite how good he has been, I have so little confidence in DTR. From what we've seen last year, from what we saw in the preseason this year, he came in for like a second against Cincinnati earlier this year, actually, when Deshaun came out and threw 2 picks against them. I don't know that the matchup matters for DTR and Cleveland. I think they're going to try to hide the passing game. I think they're going to try to hide DTR and give it to Jerome Ford as much as humanly possible, which, again, we'll talk about in the next video when we do the running back preview for this. So if you enjoy this video, you want to hear about that, you want to hear me yap about the running bikes, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Yeah, DTR is going to be a problem, I think. We don't have a status on Cedric Tillman, but again, once you get into multi-week concussion absences, it's really, really difficult to predict when the dude would come back. It could be 3 weeks. It could be 6 weeks for all I know. If Cedric Tillman is back in the lineup, it makes it even more messy. But for right now, yeah, Judy's going to be an L flex, and Elijah Moore is going to be a cone for me. And it hurts to say. It's tough to say. Cincinnati, on the flip side, going against the Cleveland defense, yeah, Jamar Chase must start. T. Higgins must start. Nothing else there. Next up, we got Arizona, 4.5-point favorites on the road in Carolina, 47-point total. I like this game. I think this game's going to be a fun one because you have 2 pretty porous defenses. You have Kyler, who struggles, but he's not playing against a team that like blitzes a lot, that gets a lot of pressure, which I think he'll play a lot better against. So I look at Marvin Harrison Jr., again, like really inconsistent, not a guy you can rely on, but I think he's a dub flex for this week. Michael Wilson is going to be an L flex for me this week. No one else you're looking at in the wide receiver core there. When you look at Carolina, I will say I have not bet on a Trey McBride touchdown this year. But if I'm going to do it, this is going to be the week that I do it, and I might even hit the 2 touchdown prop. We've seen the Arizona not media, but the Arizona personnel. We've seen coaches, we've seen players and stuff actually talk about like they're super aware that McBride has not got into the end zone via the air yet, and they are trying to get him down there. You saw it from like the shovel pass last week. I think they are going to force it to McBride to get him into the end zone. What better game? It's going to happen very, very, very soon. So I would go pair whatever free square you have on Underdog, Lamar Jackson, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, whatever they give you there, with a McBride score there and get some pretty sexy odds. All right. Carolina, very interesting. I think Bryce Young's going to pop back. I think he's played a bunch of tough defenses in a row. Like I know Dallas is not looked at as a tough defense, but they've gotten a lot better over the last month of the season, and I think they are at least an average, if not an above average defense. Well, they have a ton of injuries now, which we'll get to in a little bit, but prior to the injuries, I think they were a relatively good defense. So Bryce Young kind of gets to breathe a little bit against Arizona. Where this gets really interesting for me is Xavier Legette is week to week with a hip injury. So I think there's a really, really strong chance that he ends up missing this game, which consolidates the target share here. Adam Thielen becomes a very strong start for me. He's a strong start for me. I think Jalen Coker becomes a dub flex. We've seen when Coker's on the field, him and Bryce have like a real chemistry. He becomes the preferred outside option for him. And we saw him make a really big play last week. He went over 100 yards on 4 catches, had the very long touchdown. But Coker's been really good when he's played. And I don't think we've gotten like the perfect storm of Great matchup, high-scoring game. Jalen Coker on the field healthy. No Xavier Legette. I would feel okay about having Coker in my lineup. You have David Moore also, who's seen a lot of targets whenever one of the other receivers is out. So I think like David Moore, I definitely don't want to start him. But if you're really desperate, if you're in like a deep 12-team or a 14-team league, I think you can maybe consider David Moore an L flex play here. All right. Let's move on to Philly and Washington. We got Philly 3.5-point favorites only on the road in Washington, 45.5-point total. Philly's obviously become the best defense in the NFL at this point. For Washington, you're not playing any receiver here outside of Terry McLaurin. I know we can try to get cute here. He kind of got shut down by Philly last time, but like he's Terry McLaurin. He's going to be in your lineup, and he's going to be an extremely strong start. Anytime he steps on the field, he'll probably get a lot of targets. We got Zach Ertz probably out for this game, so if you need a deep tight end streamer, Ben Sinnott, the rookie, possibly get into your lineup. On the flip side, with Philly, if I had to guess, like the reason they're only 3.5-point favorites is just all this random injury news that's kind of coming out post game. One is the AJ Brown ankle. You got Jalen Hurts' finger. You got Saquon. He's banged up in some way. He's being like weird and coy about it. We don't actually know what's wrong with him. With this offense, you have Goddard out, of course. AJ Brown, we don't have an update. We don't have a practice report update on him. If AJ Brown plays, he's a must start. Devontae Smith is I'm going to say dub flex. I know people will probably push back on that because he's coming off a good game. But like more often than not this year, he's been a flex play, not an actual strong start. So he's going to be a dub flex for me that I feel really good about. If AJ Brown doesn't play, from what I've seen on Twitter, the Twitter docs and whatnot, they're saying that video replay shows AJ Brown probably suffering a high ankle sprain. You're not playing the next week if you have a high ankle sprain. AJ Brown came out after the game and said he's fine, he's going to be playing. I'm old enough to remember when AJ Brown said that 2 months ago. And then, when he said he was fine, he's going to be playing after his practice hamstring tweak, he missed a month of the season. I don't trust a word that comes out of players' mouths, especially when it's what happens to their body, like right post-game when they still have adrenaline, when they're just like optimistic about everything. So we'll see what the practice report says. We'll see if the ankle swells up way more. I'm just saying if you have AJ Brown, I would tentatively look to make plans elsewhere. If AJ Brown's out, obviously Devontae Smith's stock rises up. He's a very, 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 very strong start. I would probably even throw him into the must-start category. If AJ Brown's out and Dallas Goedert's out, there's just no way that Devontae Smith doesn't rack in at least 10 targets. Let's move to the Giants and the Falcons. Falcons, 8.5-point favorites at home in the Dome, 41-point total. Michael Penix Jr. will be starting for the Atlanta Falcons. It's become evident that Kirk Cousins is not a capable starting quarterback right now. We're not going to dive into all the semantics and the contract and all that kind of stuff. All we need to know is that Michael Penix is the starting quarterback. Now, as 9-point favorites at home against the Giants team that can't do anything, I don't know that they're going to ask Michael Penix to do much outside of just go out there and win his first game. I cannot fucking wait to see this man's play. Drake London, he's going to be a strong start. Darnell Mooney, I don't know what the chemistry is going to look like, man. I don't know what kind of plays they're going to sync up. I will say there was a crazy stat that came out on the Monday night game against the Raiders. The Falcons had 23 first down plays. It was 1st and 10. They had 23 of those where a new first down started. Of those 23 plays, they ran the ball on 22 of them. That's like a 94% rate. That was because of Kirk Cousins, obviously. They felt like they had no choice but to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball and run the ball and not throw the ball. I think Penix is going to come out here ready. He's had all summer. He's had the first 15 weeks of the season. He knows the offense. He knows the playbook. He's been mentored by Kirk Cousins. The volume is the only thing that scares me. We're not going to need to throw the ball. We're fine winning these low-scoring games, obviously, as we saw against the Raiders. I would say the Raiders and the Giants right now, personnel, in terms of who they're trotting out there, are probably the two worst teams in the NFL. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a similar game script with more volume, maybe more efficiency from Penix. So when I look at Mooney, when I look at Ray McLeod, I will tentatively throw Mooney into the dub flex category. I'll throw Ray into the L flex category and maybe even bordering on Cone because, again, the volume is a little bit scary there. Mooney's been lights out, down the field, making plays, one of, if not the single highest receiver in terms of just deep targets and deep receptions this year. Penix has a gun, man. Penix got a nice arm with good touch on those deep throws. So he's going to take some shots. I don't know how many, but I think he's going to look good. Hard to look bad against this New York Giants defense that ranks 26th in coverage rank, 22nd in EPA per pass rank. On the flip side, the only dude that we're talking about here is Malik Neighbors, he's going to be a strong start. He's going to get about 1 million targets. If Tim Boyle's under center, those two, they like had a crush on each other after the game, talking about how much they loved each other, etc. So Malik, I feel pretty good about. Strong start for me. Moving down, Tennessee and Indianapolis. So we've got Tennessee on the road, 3.5-point dogs, 42.5-point total here. Tennessee is going to Mason Rudolph at quarterback, which I think is good for Calvin Ridley. It's a solid matchup against Indy. One thing to notice here is Indy's pass defense has been better than most people are probably giving it credit for. As you can see, number 8 in coverage rank, number 16 in EPA per pass rank, 14th fewest fantasy points per game allowed to the wide receiver position. So they've been a little bit better than I think we probably realized, just because of how slow they started out the season and how many fantasy points they were allowing to the wide receiver position. That being said, Ridley's going to be a strong start for me. With Mason Rudolph, he's played really, really, really well. The target numbers are really high. The only other guy that people would be thinking about would be NWI, but impossible to trust him in your semifinals right now. He would be a cone for me, coming off the 2 absolute floor games. Indy, Anthony Richardson obviously continues to struggle with his passing. The team continues to struggle with drops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of wind probably taken out of the sails after Jonathan Taylor's fumble on the 1-yard line, costing them the game, moving their playoff chances down from like 60% to 10-12%. So a diabolical loss for them. Alec Pierce in concussion protocol. Good chance he misses this game, which does condense the target share. It allows Adonai Mitchell to get onto the field more than he had been this year. I think Josh Downs is still a decently high floor play. It's hard to be excited about any of these guys. I'm going to throw Josh Downs into the dub flex category. More often than not, we've seen him have very good games with Anthony Richardson under center. And if you take Alec Pierce out now, again, more condensed targets there. The other receivers, Adonai Mitchell, Michael Pittman, are going to be L flexes for me. Pittman obviously ranked a lot higher than Adonai Mitchell there. Moving down, we got Detroit and Chicago. Detroit, 6.5-point favorites on the road in Chicago, 48-point total. I will tell you, one of my favorite plays on Underdog this week is Jared Goff lower than 258 passing yards. A stat that was thrown around a lot in the preseason, including from myself, was that they played 14 of their first 15 games in a dome inside. It was perfect for this offense, which is what we've seen play out. Now they are starting that stretch of Chicago, San Fran, where they're going to be playing outside, not Jared Goff's specialty here. The Detroit defense is obviously leaking holes everywhere. They now have like 14 defensive players on the IR, including huge injuries at every single level. Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, Malcolm Rodriguez, Alex Lanzalone, fucking Carlton Davis, Ennis Rake, like all over the place. They don't have a real defense anymore, which, could in turn mean that they're going to have to throw the ball a lot more. I don't know if that's the case. David Montgomery's obviously out, so Gibbs will play a huge role here. We'll get to that in the running back version of this video. I understand that makes a lot of sense when you're playing in a dome against a team like Buffalo. When you're playing in Chicago, weather's going to be cold. We're in mid to late December right now. Chicago's a good passing defense. Chicago's been absolutely fucking trounced over the last month of the season. Like, they have not been anywhere near the defense that they were in the beginning of the year, at least from the passing side of things. The game plan for here, I think, has to be Gibbs. Heavy Gibbs. Maybe Craig Reynolds, Vaki, whatever the case may be. But Gibbs, probably the RB1 on the week. Realistically, I don't feel great about the other pass catching options for Detroit. I feel okay. Like, Amon-Ra is a must start, of course. With Jameson Williams, good player. For me, I'm leaning more towards L flex this week out of Jameson Williams. So we'll leave it at that. Chicago on the other side, you never know what you're getting from this offense. So I think at the very peak, you could throw DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, because they're getting a ton of volume, into the dub flex category. And yes, I would play both of them over Jameson Williams. And I would throw Rome into, he has dub flex days, but you could barely throw him into the L flex category. I'm gonna leave him into the L flex category. I would play Jameson over Rome Odunze, but I don't feel good about Rome whatsoever. Moving down to the Rams and the Jets. The Rams are in New York, 3.5-point favorite, 46-point total. Puka must start, obviously. The Jets defense has just been atrocious. They are banged up. They are not really playing for anything. Their offense is scoring while their defense is allowing the other team to score at an insane rate. So Cooper Kupp, despite the 0, he's still going to be a strong start for me. I could see this being a game where the Jets defense completely tries to control Puka and leaves the middle of the field open. So, yeah, Cooper Kupp, again, despite the bad game last week, is going to be a strong start for me. Don't want anybody else in the Rams offense. On the flip side, the Jets have a great matchup against the Rams. The Rams are the 26th team in terms of EPA per pass rank, 21st in fantasy points per game allowed to wide receivers, coverage rank of 20th. So you look at Garrett Wilson, you look at Devontae Adams. Devontae coming off the massive game last week. I think you got to throw him and Garrett, honestly, right back into the strong start category. I think I labeled them as dub flexes last week, but we're going to move them up a tier. Obviously, we've seen a lot of inconsistency from Rodgers, but he's playing about as good as he's played all year. The defense of the Rams is probably a little bit overrated, especially as it relates to the passing defense here. And yeah, those two just get all the targets in this offense. So I'm going to stick with strong start for both of them. Minnesota, Seattle. Minnesota on the road, 3.5-point favorites here, 42.5-point total. So not a lot of points expected in this one. All right. With Minnesota, this is the first possibly impacted weather game. There were 3 games that I wrote down. I went and checked, weather reports, went to weather.com, did the whole thing for y'all. It's not crazy weather, but there is an 80 to 90% chance of rain here in Seattle. Should be steady throughout the majority of the game, so we could see a little bit of a downtick in the passing game. That being said, though, like Justin Jefferson's obviously a must start. Jordan Addison has played well enough that I think you just throw him into the strong start category. On the flip side, the quarterback situation is going to impact every receiver here as much as humanly possible here, right? Geno Smith dealing with the lower body injury appeared way worse than it's actually being presented to us now as. He might play in this one. If Geno plays, then we ratchet everybody up to our normal stance. But Minnesota's a team that blitzes a lot, which could affect a dude like Geno whose mobile can get out of the pocket. If he's hampered, that's gonna hurt him, right? He's not gonna be able to get out of the pocket while these guys are blitzing him at a very high rate. Geno plays though, I think you have to have JSN in the strong start category. DK Metcalf is bordering on the L flex category. Lockett's obviously a cone. Metcalf, I'm gonna throw him into the L flex category. I don't know what else you can possibly do here against a good pass defense for a guy who hasn't done a fucking thing over the last month of the season. He's kind of like a slightly upgraded version of Deebo Samuel at this point, where the name value is so much more real than the actual production value here. He's valid to take a big play any given drop back. But if it's Sam Howell, then yeah, both these guys get a massive downgrade. JSN would move into the dub flex category very hesitantly. I think DK would probably stay into the L flex category for me, but I don't feel good about either of them. He'll go into the L flex category, but be the highest ranked player in there. Move down to New England and Buffalo. Buffalo, 2 touchdown favorites at home, 46-point total here. This is going to be another weather game. It's going to be around 15 degrees in this one, extremely cold. And I know some people will say like, oh, the temperature doesn't actually matter for fantasy points or anything like that. I do think when you get down to 15, 10 degrees, when it's that cold, it does affect the passing game a little bit. You start to see teams go more run heavy here. We saw James Cook go crazy last week against a very depleted Detroit front there. I could see them relying really heavily on James Cook again as 2 touchdown favorites. That feels like James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson all over again. So when it comes to the receiving group, you also can't rely on any one of these receivers to really have a good game outside of Khalil Shakir. So Shakir is going to be a dub flex for me. Cooper played like 40% of the snaps last week. He actually, even in the 14-target game 2 weeks ago, was really only playing like 45, 50% of the snaps. So Cooper and Keon Coleman are both going to be L flexes for me. Shakir is going to be a dub flex despite the great matchup here with Dalton Kincaid back. Also, like, you don't know where the targets are going to go. I don't think it's going to be a game where Josh Allen needs to throw the ball more than 30 times. On the flip side, Drake May, yeah, I'm not starting anybody in the New England receiving room, so they're all going to be fucking clowns for me. Next up, we got about 4 games left. We got Miami, 1-point favorite at home against San Francisco, 44.5-point total here. San Francisco's pass defense is starting to really come together. As you can see by the ranks there, 2nd in coverage rank, 7th in EPA per pass rank, 5th fewest fantasy points per game allowed to the wide receiver position. So with that being said, I mean, Jalen Waddle is very likely going to be out for this game. The only pass catchers you are looking to start here are Tyreek Hill, Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane. Malik Washington, I think people are going to get cute with him. He would still be an L flex for me filling in. San Francisco, on the flip side, I mean, you can't play Ricky Pearsall. You cannot play Deebo Samuel. I mean, Juwan Jennings is interesting. I think you could make the argument that he's a strong start. Good weather in Miami, conducive to a passing game. I think Bosa, whether or not he plays, don't know if it's looking likely, would be massive because Miami was playing without both of their starting tackles last week, and we saw that become a huge problem against the really strong Houston pass rush. So that could be a game that we see kind of a similar effect for Miami's offense. Juwan Jennings, I think realistically, I'd probably throw him into the dub flex category, but he's probably bordering on the strong start category for me. Next up, we got Jacksonville. We got Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas needs They're 1-point favorites. 39.5-point total is disgusting here. They need Aiden O'Connell back. If it's Desmond Ridder again, I don't think you could trust anybody. Jacoby Myers would be the only receiver we think about, obviously, and even that, he'd be an L flex for me. If Aiden O'Connell is back, Jacoby goes into the dub flex category. For Jacksonville, we are looking at Brian Thomas Jr. and only Brian Thomas Jr. It's a great matchup. Mac Jones obviously loves him. He would be a strong start for me. Last two games, we got Sunday Night Football. We got Monday Night Football. Tampa Bay, 4-point favorites on the road in Dallas, a 48-point total. One of, if not the highest totals of the week. Love this matchup for Tampa Bay. Mike Evans is obviously a must-start. Jalen McMillan, I don't know that I feel great about him as a flex, to be honest with you. He's played well the last 2 weeks. Baker's playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL right now. McMillan's running a lot of the routes. He's producing. Dallas's defense is really banged up. They now lose Diggs. They lose Overshawn. Like, they started to get it together, but then started losing too many players for it to really become a valid piece of their team. So with that being said, although they're still fighting for a playoff spot, going back and forth, I think on paper, here's what I'll lay out for you. On paper, McMillan's a dub flex. Somewhere in my heart, though, tells me to put him into the L flex category. I'm gonna go dub flex. We're gonna play paper. We're gonna play the paper route here. Put Jalen McMillan into the dub flex category. For Dallas, CeeDee Lamb is obviously, a strong, a must start with Cooper Rush under center. I don't trust anybody else in that passing game. However, New Orleans, Green Bay, last matchup of the week, and this is the last weather game here Monday night in Green Bay, in Lambeau. Green Bay, 14-point favorites, 2 touchdown favorites, 42-point total. Again, New Orleans will be playing Spencer Rattler. I think MBS is in the concussion protocol. Alvin Kamara dealing with the groin injury. I don't even know who they're trotting out at this point, but you're not starting anybody on the New Orleans Saints side of things. Of course, for Green Bay, it's going to be around 25 degrees. We're going to get some minor snow in this game. This has Josh Jacobs obviously written all fucking over it. As for the passing game, I don't think they're going to ask Jordan Love to throw the ball that much. Obviously, Wicks is a cone. Jaden Reed, he's got to go. This is such a good matchup on paper. Like, the Saints have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers, but they also cannot stop the run for a fucking thing. So with all of these guys, when I'm talking about, like, who do I want to flex, I think the way I look at it, if I'm just going by my feel, my gut feel, Dobbs is going to be a dub flex for me. I still think, like, when he's on the field, Jordan Love likes him more than any other receiver. He's going to be a dub flex for me. I think Reed and Watson are both going to be L flexes for me. And I think I might be at the point where I would start Watson over Jaden Reed, but I don't feel good about either of them. All right. I don't feel great about any of the receivers here, but Romeo Dobbs is kind of cool for me. All right. And that was a long one, but we're going to stop it there. And again, if you enjoyed the video, all we ask is you hit the button that looks like this. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We'll be doing the running back version of this same video tomorrow for you. And go download the Underdog Fantasy app, all right? First link down below. Use code BDGE. When you deposit on there, you'll get a free square. You'll get a deposit bonus. I love you. I'm out of here. Smoke cheese.